Today I am finally sitting down to make what is probably my most requested video ever, and that's the video where I talk about what I told the doctor during my appointment when I was diagnosed as being autistic. The appointment lasted about 5 hours. This was the very end of the appointment. It was probably about 10 minutes of the appointment, but basically I already went through all of the testing and filled out many papers, sat in a room with a computer and clicked a whole bunch of buttons. I'd gone through a lot of other stuff first, but basically the test ended when they asked me why I thought I might be autistic. Because as an adult, I had gone to my doctor and I said, hey, is there a chance that you think I might be autistic? Because I'm kind of wondering. And he said he thought it was extremely likely. And so I asked him for a referral myself, and he wrote one, and he wasn't really sure if it was something that was actually going to happen because of our insurance, and then it happened. It happened really fast. It was surprisingly easy, which was something that I didn't expect. I didn't really expect it to happen, which is why I dragged my feet on it for so long. I'm always making appointments for our kids. If you're new here, we have 4 kids who have been diagnosed as also being autistic, with a 5th that is being tested soon, or maybe is being tested soon. I don't really know what's going to happen now with the whole virus thing. He's supposed to be tested at the end of this month. I have no idea if that's going to happen or if that's going to be pushed off too. So let's get down to it. I had actually sat down and made a Google document where I wrote down everything that I thought of that made me wonder, because I know that when I get in doctor's offices, I tend to forget the things that I want to say, and then later on I think of them and I think, oh, I wish I'd remembered that. I was gonna ask about that, and I always forget. So I had this, and I tried to bring it up on my phone that morning and it wouldn't work, and so I downloaded Google Docs app, and suddenly I had it in front of me. Actually, I think I did that like in the waiting room right before, when I realized that I couldn't bring it up on my phone like I thought I was going to. And so this was the list that I basically read off, and then the doctor was like, okay. And it started with this. One of the things that made me wonder was intense focus on a particular subject when I was little. Really, the 2 that came to mind were horses and riding. Probably horses the most when I was younger, and then as I got older, riding. I remember when I was like Sadie's age, so like 10, 11, 12, sitting there and writing all day when I had the time. I remember one weekend day, just the whole entire day going by, and I had written 10 pages of typed single-spaced writing at my computer, which I guess probably is hyper-focused too, but I thought of that as just intense focus on one subject, which was my writing. When I was really tiny, I remember being anxious when there was a change in routine, like I needed to know if something was going to be different, like we were going to the bank the next day. I wanted to know that the day before. I remembered hearing a lot, Cammie isn't very flexible, when I was little. And I remember when I started masking, my family was okay with who I was. My family was very supportive of who I was. Like, I wasn't treated like I was different from other people. I remember in 4th grade, I started to realize that socially, other people had an easier time than I did. And I had a best friend who I was very close to, who was socially very good at things. And I started listening to the things that she said, like the conversations she had. Like, she would say, hi, how are you? I'm fine, how are you? And I guess that's when I first started coming up with scripts, and I would go over them in my head. Hi, how are you? I'm fine, how are you? And come up with scripts for conversations, for how these conversations were supposed to go, because knowing those things made life easier. I mean, I already had manners that my parents had taught me, like, please, thank you, you're welcome. I learned those when I was like 2, really young, because I remember people making a big deal, like, oh, it's so cute, this 2-year-old knows how to say please and thank you. But these other things that weren't as easy to learn, these social scripts that everybody else seemed to know innately, I remember memorizing them, watching other people. But then when I got older, I remember, and people started having like more casual language, like everyone started saying like, what's up, back and forth. It was like my brain couldn't handle that, like what's up being the response to what's up. It was like short circuit overload. Like, no, that's not the response. Yes, majorly nerdy brain. Anyways, let's go on. So this was one that I just recently thought of, and that would be, I guess, rituals with no apparent function. And this was actually from a group that I was in on Facebook, and someone asked about OCD, and I'm not sure if this is an OCD thing. I was diagnosed with OCD earlier. I'm really thinking that the thing that made me be diagnosed with OCD were really more when I was in college, were really more autism things than OCD things. But anyways, one was when someone had asked about when you go in the grocery store, can you go straight to the thing that you need, or do you have to walk all the way around the grocery store in a certain path? And I was like, oh no, when I go in the grocery store, I have to walk all the way around the grocery store in a certain way. I always go the same way through the grocery store. And I don't know if that's an autism thing, but it's something that I do. And so then I started quizzing everyone in the house, and I was like, Paul, when you go in the grocery store, do you just go to the thing that you need, or do you always have to go the same way? And he was like, I go to what I need, and then I buy it and I leave. And I was like, I asked everybody else, and everybody just said they went to the thing that they need, and I realized that that was different. Anyways, anyone else out there do that? Because yeah, I always go in through like the home goods section, because we go to Meijer and there's like a home section that has like the things that aren't groceries, and then the other side is like groceries, and I always go in through the right side of the store, which is home goods, and I walk all the way around past all the home goods, and then I walk down the grocery side and do my shopping, starting at the back of the store and moving towards the front of the store, even when I really just more need groceries than anything on that side. It's why like online shopping is really good for me, because I spend way less when I do online shopping, like half as much. And that's why I try to do that as much as I can. Feeling much younger than my age and having interests that were much younger than my age. Like, I still wanted to play with Barbies and dolls when everybody else was moving on and being interested in boys. And I remember having crushes, like, and having a poster of Leonardo DiCaprio on my wall in Romeo and Juliet, and having crushes like everyone else. But I still wanted to be playing with Barbies and horses and reading books about princesses, and I still loved the show Power Rangers when that was considered like a preschool show and I was in 6th grade. The nightmare of my life was when I ordered Power Ranger books in those Scholastic book papers that they sent home from school, and my teacher out loud in front of the entire class said, Cami, is this a mistake? Did you mean to order a Power Rangers book? And the entire class laughed at me. And I said, oh, I was getting those for my nephew. And the class was like, kept laughing anyways. And so the next time I still saw a book I really wanted, it was a Power Rangers book. And I ordered it thinking in my head, that can't possibly happen twice. And she did it again, and everyone laughed at me again, and I just wanted to die. And I think that was one of the meanest things a teacher ever did, because she knew everyone was going to laugh and did it anyway. So cruel. She really didn't like me. Also, I dressed much younger. Like, when I went to high school, I was totally wearing really just like little kiddish jeans with like big baggy shirts with horses on them all the time. And all the other girls were dressing more adults like. And all I wanted to do was like, I saved up my money and bought a horse. And all I cared about was my horse. Not eating because of social anxiety. It wasn't like did not care at all about how I looked. When I got to college, I didn't eat for 7 days because I didn't want to go to the school cafeteria by myself and eat by myself. And so I had a single room, no access to a kitchen. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to drive to the store. I was from a little town and was down in the Bay Area, and I didn't want to go out. And I didn't want to go to the cafeteria, and so I stayed in my room and went to my classes, and I did not eat at all for 7 days. And finally, 2 boys from my English class, who were really sweet, got me to go out to breakfast for them, and then we started having breakfast every morning. And they were some of my first friends, and then another girl across the hall who knew one of them became one of my friends, and I started making friends. But yeah, that is how bad my social anxiety is. I did not eat anything for 7 days because I did not want to eat by myself, and I did not want to go in there into the cafeteria by myself. It can be pretty extreme. It's not that bad now. I have no problem. Actually, I kind of enjoy eating by myself now. I have no problem going to restaurants by myself with a book. And by the time I was like halfway through college, that was one of my favorite things, going out to eat by myself with a book. But when I first got to college, that was totally a thing. My stems. So my very, very biggest stem would be like making little lines on papers over and over again, covering the edges of my papers with the writing on the inside. But mostly it would have been like flapping, which I very quickly replaced by tapping my toes inside of my shoes. I tap danced, and that was really helpful. Then I was always tap dancing under my desks at school, really quietly so no one could see. And then making patterns with my fingers, like making stars, imagining I was making stars with my fingers, like how you draw a star like that, doing that with my fingertips, tightening muscles, tapping, just little stems that no one would really notice, except for Sadie does. Sadie points them out. She's like, I see you stemming. To point out that even my little stems are still stems, basically. Various points in my life I've tried harder to fit in, and I can usually mask pretty effectively, but it's always a recipe for burnout. I can even act pretty extroverted, which I tried hard to do for a couple of years in college, and it's kind of a recipe for disaster for me. I wrote, fitting in is never natural. I never feel like my face is naturally responding with most people. Some people I feel comfortable with, and then it's fine and I don't even think about it. Other people I'm constantly thinking about eye contact. Is it enough? Is it too much? And how obvious my emotions are on my face. When I'm nervous, my voice goes up, especially on the phone. If I'm not comfortable with a person, it's so annoying. If I'm having a conversation with more than one person who I don't know super well, then I'm not likely to speak at all. It takes a huge heroic effort for me to say anything at all, and I will overthink anything that I say afterwards a huge amount. I'm completely fashion inept, especially when I was younger. Friends in college always wanted to give me a makeover, take me to Sephora, do my makeup. I've gone through points where I wear makeup. I usually try to in videos. If I'm not doing a video, I probably am not going to wear makeup at all. But yeah, more or less I'll go through points where I'll wear makeup and then years where I don't wear it at all. When I was in high school, I would be described by people who didn't like me at all, or even when I was younger, as cold or stuck up. But really, I'm just shy and awkward. Friends have always teased me, especially in high school, about this fake hug, because I had a group of friends that I'd known forever, that was very, very huggy. But whenever people would hug me, I would always just kind of do this tap on the back thing like this. If I couldn't do like a side hug, and just kind of squeeze, and I would always go super stiff when people hugged me. As a younger kid, I would make up games for everyone, and I had to control everything in the game. I would make up everyone's part in the game, and people usually went along with it because the games were usually pretty fun. But yeah, I kind of had to control everything a lot of the time. In middle school, I had this awesome science teacher who let me and two of my friends eat lunch in her classroom, even though it was against the rules, and we would sneak up there and eat every day, and that was pretty amazing. I loved lining up my courses. I loved making lists. I had hundreds of notebooks and could make lists all day of my favorite books, places I wanted to go, things I wanted to do, baby names, everything I could think of. I loved lists as a kid, teenager, college student. If I had time, I'm sure I would still make lists. But yeah, I haven't made lists really in years because I don't really have time to anymore. If I make lists now, they're usually of videos I'm gonna make on like an app. I was in GATE. I was a 4.0 student, NHS, student council, student government. Everything had to be perfect. I pushed myself really hard. I was a perfectionist and an overachiever in everything that I did. I did go through a phase about opening and closing things. I think I saw something somewhere about like a cat being trapped in something, and after that I became really paranoid that my cat was going to be trapped in something, and went through this phase of like always checking when I closed the refrigerator. I'd open it back up because I was afraid my cat was going to get like trapped in there or something like that, and got kind of compulsive about that. I definitely have sensory things. When I was in karate, when they would do like joint things, my joints don't feel like submission moves. So like I have hyper flexible joints, so they could do like submission moves on me, and they'd use me as like the dummy, and it wouldn't hurt me when they would twist my arms different ways, and it wouldn't hurt at all. So I guess that's where the girls get it from. I would always pick full contact things, like fighting, rugby. I got hurt a lot. I had a lot of concussions, and it wasn't necessarily the smartest thing to do. A lot of the vestibular seeking is done, I think, because of the concussions, because now I get dizzy really, really easily, and I wish I'd been a little bit more careful with my head. But I do have some touch aversion. When stressed, I really hate to be touched. When sick, it hurts to be touched a lot, even especially light touch. First sign for me of a fever before anything else is that my skin absolutely excruciatingly hurts. I guess the closest thing to describe it would be like a sunburn, but it's much, much worse than a sunburn. Sounds set off migraines, sounds that are feelings, feelings that are sounds is the best way to describe it. Paul has this hologram cup, and I hate the feelings of holograms more than anything else. Certain fabrics, like just touching them is like a sound. And certain yarns, like certain acrylic yarns, I hate the sound that it makes when I touch them, even though it's not really a sound. I don't really know how to describe it. I spent a lot of time when I was younger reading books, hiding under the bed reading these long fantasy books, just imagining that I was gonna live there. I also memorized and recited these super long poems all the time when I was younger, like The Lady of Shalott. I memorized that and just recited it and annoyed the heck out of my roommate in college because I still was doing that in college. There's a couple of trauma-related things that I told her about that I left out here. Some self-harm stuff that I left out that I also told her about that I might talk about in a later video. I might not. I don't know. So those were the signs for me of autism. And when she told me my diagnosis, she said she felt that it was pretty obvious, that especially the kind of scripts that I came up with when I was younger, when I started imitating my friend, my best friend, and we even dressed alike and pretended we were twins, that those were kind of the biggest clues for her that I was autistic. That was what I talked about when I was diagnosed or during my evaluation. Anyways, I hope that's helpful for some of you. It was a lot less stressful than I expected it to be. Anyways, that is it for today. If you like this video, I'd love it if you'd give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in all things autism, I'd love it if you'd hit subscribe. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.